And actually, I suppose I should prepare to share my screen. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Penny, and we're here to show you Tana. And I'm going to share my screen. Oops. That's odd. All right, screen two. That's the one I want to share. Okay. And I am not seeing my screen. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, sorry guys, I'm going to just stop that for a second because I am not seeing what I expect to see here. And now Gather's gone all goofy.
We did see a screen share there, if that.
Did you? Yeah, but I'm not seeing anything at all.
That's
And I've completely lost my
That's
because it
the
goes
showcase challenge mode.
Yeah, that's weird. Oops. Okay, go back. Sorry, everybody. And maybe just, you know what? I guess you can't kill the stream. Okay. Share. And
Do you want us to chat when you figure it out?
yeah, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
so everyone, today we are going to learn about Tana. I actually don't know anything about Tana, which is why I'm very excited to be here, but I could read you the description on the website, where AI can do real work. A new digital environment that unlocks the potential of human AI collaboration. Well, that gets us very excited for
Yeah, and again, I'm not
well, there you go, you got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing, oh, there it is. I have to do that. Oh God, sorry about that, everybody. My apologies to the people on YouTube. Maybe we'll edit that part out. Okay, so hi, I'm Penny Olorenshaw, and I'm one of the co-founders here at No Code North, and I've been working with a new tool called Tana for the past 15 months or so. And my take on it, and not only my take, is that it's potentially your next Swiss Army knife. But the question is, can an everything OS exist? Can one tool replace all the other tools that you use? Tana's trying. They've still got a ways to go, but they've got a long-term plan, and I think it's going to be exciting to see where it goes over the next few years. So let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, that's not working either. Hang on. Okay, there. Now I can do that. All right, things you learn. Okay, so Tana is a watch. This is going to be a whole bunch. I'm going to go through these quickly. Knowledge management, task manager, project management, habit tracker, life organizer, a project planner, a meeting manager. It can be your CRM. It's a personal productivity app. It's a research assistant. It's a content creation system. It's a media tracker. It's a garden planner. And it's a repository for all your brilliant ideas. Tana can be whatever you need it to be, almost. I think there's a song somewhere in there. Tana's on a mission to reinvent how humans, teams, and computers work together. Tana is a node-based knowledge graph. So when we think about the information that we currently create, store, refer to, etc., we think of it in terms of files and folders and files, and then within files you might have pages and things like that. Tana takes a very different approach. Essentially, it's a newer concept called a knowledge graph, which essentially says each point in a graph is a piece of information, and then we can make connections between points and I don't know if you can see my cursor. I think you can. And find connections between points and between multiple points. All right. So anything can connect to anything else. A lot of people ask, what's the difference between Notion and Tana? Because Tana is essentially aiming to be a replacement for Notion, or at least an option to Notion for those who don't want to use Notion or love working with Tana more than Notion. So I used Notion a bit. I got stuck with it, but it's very flexible. And so is Tana. in the flexibility is the amazing ability to do anything you want, but it also means that you've got a learning curve and you've got to figure out what it is you want it to do. But the biggest difference between Notion and Tana is that Notion is very top down. You have to basically kind of create your structure first. You need to know what the databases are before you start putting information into them and then pulling information out of them. Whereas with Tana, everything's very bottom up. So you just start creating things. And then at some point you say, this needs to get connected. This is this sort of thing. So I'm going to create a name for this sort of thing. And then I want to add, perhaps additional information about that sort of thing. So you can build up your structure until you've got something very complex. But if you start very complex, it gets really hard to figure out how to sort of come down to a simple basis. The thing with Notion, though, is that if you jump right into the middle of it, like I did, which is like, I just start throwing things on to the screen, all of a sudden you end up kind of going, but I wanted to connect this and this thing together. How do I do that? And you have to kind of go back, step way back, and then watch a bunch of videos to learn how to use it, and then define your structure. So the other thing about Notion is that it's page based. So you have a page in your Notion database where you put information, and you can go back and forth between pages and whatnot. You can connect pages together, but it's sort of focused on a page. Whereas Tana, the approach they take is that it's node based. So instead of calling something a page, we call it a node, and all your information about a node is on that node in that place. In Notion, you have to create each view. So you start with a database, but then if I want to have this kind of view, and then you go and pull in what kind of fields you want to show in that view. And you've got to do that for each time you want to see a view. Whereas in Tana, they have built-in views for Kanban or something similar to what we would call a Kanban, or a table, or just listing things. Notion handles long form writing. So if you want to write your book in Notion, you could do that. Tana, because everything is node based, every sentence becomes its own node. Now, last night, for those who are watching on YouTube who might be some Tana users, last night I actually played around and actually found a way to sort of take a bunch of nodes and quickly turn them into a paragraph, which somebody had been asking about. So check that out. We have a great Slack community where there's about 19,000 people currently working in Tana through the Slack community. And it's quite active. Um, but anyway, so doing long form work takes extra work, but eventually I think they will figure out the best way to do that so that you can do longer form writing. All right, at its heart, Tana is an outlining tool. So just like in a Word doc where you put in a bullet list and you can create a bunch of bullets, um, Tana is the same thing. So we start with a concept, and everything has the little dot on the side um, that it's a bullet. And then we start with a concept. We can break that down into a subconcept. We can add another subconcept. We can break that subconcept down further, and we can get even more granular. So we can just sort of keep indenting and indenting. When we sort of step back, we've actually got something that sort of relates a little bit more to that second subconcept. So we're step back out, and then maybe we go back out and add one more subconcept. Anyway, now we do the same thing with another concept. I've got a whole different concept, and we add all of those pieces again. But then we realize that there's connections between these two things. We didn't think there was. We thought they were separate things, but all of a sudden we realized that this subconcept relates to the subconcept over there, and we can make relationships, connections. All right. So Tana is built on nodes, which I've talked about, and references. Everything is a node. So every single line, every bullet point is an individual node with its own address in the database so that you can always connect, you can always find any node and then use it. Everything is a node. And I think this is the thing that sort of always surprises people is that every single thing you do in Tana is creating an address within that knowledge graph, right? That database. So even, well, I won't even get into that because that'll get complex. But a reference, though, is a mirror copy of a node. So you can have a node and it lives in one place, but if you want to see it in another place, you basically just create a reference to that original node. That old node, that original node stays where it is, but you've got an absolute mirror copy. So any changes that you make to the reference are also made in the node. So you don't have to constantly go and find where it was that you put that thing because you can always find it through a different method. Nodes can be created anywhere, but most of the time, nodes live on the daily note. So when I said Notion was page based, um, the node for today in Tana is called a daily note. And essentially every day I go to my daily note and that's where I work. And then all I need to know is that something exists. I can always search for it and find it and bring it back, but it lives on that daily note unless I move it somewhere else. But most of the time, most people don't move things because they don't need to. And nodes have basic properties. We'll get into those in a little bit more detail in a moment. The next thing to know about Tana is that there are super tags, fields, searches, and views. And this is what the power of Tana comes from is not just the nodes and the references, but what we can do with them. So super tags allow classification. So it's essentially turning a node into an object. So if you're used to object-oriented programming, objects exist and they can have properties. Fields are what those properties are. So they hold the data about your super tag, kind of like the metadata about your object. Searches or queries surface your data however you choose to ask for it. And views let you choose how to present your data. So if you want to show it in a table or you want to show a list or whatever, you can do that. In Tana, you can input and you can work directly on a screen, which is how most people work because that's where you do all of your sort of arranging and tagging and whatnot. But we also have Tana Capture, which is an iOS or Android app. Because right now there isn't a mobile app available, but it's being worked on and crossing fingers it will come soon. Um, because it is a limitation. And so because they wanted to focus on building a good mobile app, a right mobile app, they developed a sort of an intermediary step called Tana Capture, which allows you to upload um, uh, it's in iOS and Android, and it allows you to upload text or voice memos or images, media, and you can even do text scanning with it. And that will then upload directly into your Tana, and then you can manipulate it there. All right. And then the other part about Tana is it was built from the ground up to include AI. The people who built Tana are people who have worked at like the major companies like Google and Microsoft and whatnot. So they've been involved in the AI world and they've had that connection. They've known what was coming for a long time. And so it wasn't an afterthought. It was always built to revolve around AI. So you connect directly to OpenAI, and hopefully at some point you'll be able to use other systems like Anthropic's Claude or any of the other systems that are out there. But the great thing about it is if you don't use ChatGPT is $20 a month US. So for us that gets expensive. And if you don't use it all, then you've kind of spent a lot of money on having access to AI. With this, you only pay for what you use. So you can choose whether you want to be in GPT 3.5 or 4 or whatever is the latest version. And you can even choose when you want to use those higher end and more expensive versions of OpenAI. But you only pay for the data that you send back and forth. You're not actually, or for the amount of time that you're using OpenAI, you're not paying for the fact that you have access to it. You're just paying for what you use. So I spend sometimes like $2 a month. Depends on how busy I am doing AI related things. You can use Ask AI to just get a quick response on something. You can ask AI for some information, or you can um, give it give it some information, and then right on that node, you can say, "Ask AI to do something with this." Um, but you can use it to generate images with DALL-E, and you can create complex commands with multiple steps by using the whole built-in AI command system, which allows you to basically filter and target particular nodes to do particular actions and whatnot. And uh, I've seen people build some incredible things. And after this, we'll switch over to the live demo, but you can learn more at tana.inc is where you go for that. I'm going to stop that screen share, and I have to figure out how to do that. I'm going to close that down. And oh, look at that. That's interesting. Okay, I have to stop screen share. Okay, now I will start sharing Tana. Okay. All right. So this is Tana. In Tana, you can be in light mode or dark mode. Tana works, there's an app that you download. You can also work in the browser, and there's a Chrome desktop app that you can use. And if you use that, if you really hate this font and want a fancier font, you can actually then throw in additional styling on top of the browser and make certain things look a particular way, and that takes an awful lot of time and probably not something that most people want to do. um, but I talked about, oh, sorry, here, now I have to switch over here. Okay. So I talked about nodes and whatnot. So these are what a bunch of nodes look like. Now, these nodes all have additional nodes underneath them. So that's why there's this little halo around it. But when I go in, here's that simple, basic bullet that indicates that this is sort of like the bottom level of this hierarchy of nodes. Um, Before I get into going through all of this, I'm just going to show you a little bit, because my husband's last time I did a demo said you should show people what it looks like before you start getting into the weeds here. So um, I'm showing you my daily what I look at every day. So hello, it's being fussy. There we go. Okay. So I have a bunch of things that I do in the mornings. So I also try to remember to track my water, and most of the time I don't. Today I haven't had enough water, although I have had an extra glass of water. Okay. So I do a bunch of things. I look at things, and then I look at my agenda. Now, right now I've got this weird thing where I've got all of these open times. But when I get down here, oops, I'm going to close that up. Sorry, last minute adjustments. So uh, I have a search that basically looks for everything in my Tana that was due today or wasn't done previously. So I don't lose things. And that's the brilliant thing about Tana for me, is that now I don't lose things. And I got to give a shout out to RJ Nestor, who created this amazing system that I use. because again, as I said before, Tana starts with a blank page. There is nothing there when you start. You decide what you decide on everything that goes into it. So it's a bit of a learning curve, but it also means you have to really think through what are the things you want to do. And so the very wisest thing Tana did was early on, they brought in people that were already doing a lot of things around productivity or were using other tools and invited them to come and start using Tana. And they've created materials and templates and training courses and things like that that have helped a lot of people learn how to use these tools. Obviously, I need to take the roast out of the freezer, or we're not going to have dinner on Sunday. So I have to do that. Um, I've already created this Tana presentation, but I'm going to just say here, I'm going to complete this. Oops, complete my Tana presentation. So I've just changed that. Now this is a reference. I mentioned references. I'll show you in a moment. But I've already done this, so I'm going to just mark that as done. Okay, now turn to gray. And I've probably got some other things that I could check here. Oh, I've got some things that I did yesterday. So I'm going to mark that off as done. And you can see I've got these sort of red squares. Those are my priorities, so I can look at things in different ways. Now, this looks like it's crazy, right? This is just nuts. Before I do this, I'm going to clean up. So those things that I just marked done, I've now taken off my list by cleaning up. So I'm going to group these instead. I'm going to view, yeah, I'm going to group them and in my priority list. And just takes a moment. And now I can see with priorities what what I need to be working on. Or I can group them by the assigned bin. So this is sort of like by the project. And I can see here I've got some things to do for home. I've got this Tana workshop, um, admin things, training website, various other ways. So I can kind of go through and I can adjust those what I'm seeing so that I can go through my day and just kind of make sure I figure out all the things that need to be done. I have already backed up my phone, so I have this special little button that I click, and these are the commands that I mentioned as the really complex commands that you can create. So now what this has done, and again, this is one of RJ Nestor's brilliant uh, systems, is that I've created a new item for tomorrow, and that's why it's grayed out because it doesn't reflect today, it's tomorrow. So it shouldn't be showing up here, except that it's here so we can see it. And it's basically marked it as done and left it on the list here so that I know that this was done today. Okay, so a whole bunch of things like that. So that's a little bit of what you can do with it. I've got a project in here I was going to show you on how yes, okay. So one thing I can do is I can actually go right into a node and I can see the projects that are in here. This is my admin project. Oh, sorry, this gets a little, you know what? I'm not going to go here because this gets crazy. But I'm going to go back. But what I've done with my projects is I've basically broken anything that's a web project that I tag as a web project, I've broken it down so that I have phases so that I don't see, there's like 100 and some different tasks you might do in the course of a project. So I break it down into admin and uh, discovery and content creation and things like that so that then I can just sort of organize those tasks within the area that they're connected to, and I don't have to look at everything all together. Okay, so outlining. So as I said before, everything is an outline and each point's indented. And that way it's easy to see what the relationships are between nodes, and this node is related to this basics item. There's a hierarchy. So siblings, and some of these will be sort of similar. There's a lot of things within Webflow that are similar. So siblings are on the same level. So hierarchy of nodes and nodes can be moved are both our siblings. whereas parent is one level up. So hierarchy of nodes is the parent of parent one level up. The grandparent is two levels up. So that would be outline would be my grandparent there. And every child is a node of the parent above it. Nodes can be moved. So you can indent things to create a node of the child above it. If I do that, I'm moving it out of that node and now it's a sibling. But if I drag it back in there, now it's back to being a child. And navigation, as I showed you before, you can click right on the node. To go into that particular node, I can click on the next node to zoom right into that. And here I could then add more info. And if I go back in the panel, now you can see there's the add more info that I just added. So let me go back a little bit more. And now we're back into node navigation. And there's that new one that I just added. And so there's navigation arrows to go back and forth. You can also use your keyboard and your mouse to uh, expand and collapse these. So if I go here and I hold command up, it closes that up. And if I go command down, it opens it up again. All right. So on to nodes and references. As I said, everything's a node. Every node is unique. Every node has an owner, a parent. So even further up. So what I'm showing you today is here on a node that is today's date, which is in this week, which is in this particular workspace that I'm in. So there's actually a whole breadcrumb thing that we can go back to. It's actually in this year and then in this workspace. Nodes do not accept line breaks. So if I wanted to put a line break in here, it becomes a new node. And I can't do a command shift return to do a soft return. All it does is creates a new node there for me. Nodes have some basic properties. So created time, last edited time is a whole bunch of different basic properties that are sort of like in Webflow, you're published on, modified on, etc. Those kinds of things, which you don't always see. You will see them in a list if you ask for them or if you see it in a CSV. So most of the time we don't see these, but we can actually sort of make them visible when we need to, if we want to see when something was created. Formatting can be applied. So if I highlight something, I can actually highlight it, or I can bold, etc. And if I wanted to, this is the fun thing about references, I could at reference, nodes can be moved. And now if I click on nodes, it's going to take me to the nodes can be moved item. So that's great if you've got, depending what you're sort of trying to track with it. You might want to connect one thing to another. So I'm writing today about the conversation that I had with so and so, and you could then tag so and so that you could go back to see their node with the information that you've stored about them. All right. And nodes can have emojis. If you hit colon, you get the emoji, and then you can also use your emoji keyboard. All right. Everything happens on your daily note, as I mentioned. So we talked about super tags and fields and searches and views. So here's the magic. You can turn your node into an object with information, and then you can use that information to see all of those objects that fit in that same description, in that same super tag. So if I apply a super tag I've already got here called super, now I've basically made this an item within my super tag called super. Now, super tag is interesting because you can just basically tag things and you can sort of get a list of everything that's got that super tag. But where it really gets powerful is when you use fields to add more data. So you can create a field for whatever information that you need to collect. So various things you might collect about a person, including a relationship type. So you, in certain situations, if you're working on a work project, but you've also got friends in your person super tag, maybe you want to say only when I'm working on a project, only show me the people who I have tagged as customers, and then it'll only list those for you to choose from. Those fields are kind of like the fields in a database, like Webflow in a collection. um, they can be applied to any nodes, but we usually use them in super tags. So this is what a field looks like, and it's essentially like anything else. It's a key value pair. So this is my key, and this is the value that's been assigned to that key in this node. Now, this is a field that I can't use anywhere else because, I mean, I could, but I'd have to recreate it every time I want to use it. So that's where putting them in super tags is really helpful. So if I go back here, let me just, I know I have a place here. I have to make sure I don't jump ahead here. So I can create a field on any line by using the shift key and period or the greater than sign, it's the same key. So if I create a line, I have an empty line, and I hold down shift and then hit the arrow key or the greater than key, now I have a space where I can create a field. This is a new field. And then I can a new field. So now I have a field and a value in that. But the more useful place is to create a field within a super tag. So if I now assign my super tag to this, my tag called super tag, if I right click, oops, I don't usually use that system. I'm sort of a little more old school with Tana, considering it's been around for not very long. It's, I'm stuck in my ways, but I'm going to right click on super and I'm going to configure my tag. So here, instead of creating my field and then having to recreate it every time, I put it into my super tag, and I have to hold down shift and my greater than sign. Now I can create a field, and you notice that a field has a particular little icon beside it. So let's call this a super field. And I can put in a default value so that every time I create a super tag or a tag, I probably shouldn't have used super, but every time I create an item and add super tag to it, I could have default information come up. But most of the time, that really depends on how you want to use it. But now you'll see, when I close this, you'll see that here, there's the field that I just created, my super field. And now I can put information into it. What happens now is that if I then create another super field, super tag, oops, super, and I call that super. Now my super field's already here and I can use it. So I don't have to go and create that every time. And I can make those as complex as I want to. I will show you a little bit further on what you can do with those fields. All right, so you can create lots of different types of fields, just like in any other database. We have different content types that we can use. So we have plain text. I'm going to change this because they changed the name of it. Okay, so you can have plain text where there's no extra sauce added to it. You can have options. So you can create a list of options that you want to be able to choose from. So I showed you that relationship type before where you have acquaintance and customer and whatnot. Those would be options that are sort of set and defined in advance as those are the options you're going to choose from. Whereas if you want options from super tag, you basically say, okay, I want to see all of the super tag, all of the items that I've tagged with hashtag super. so that then I would see only those items that have that super tag that I've chosen. And that's where it starts to get powerful, because you can say, show me all the projects, everything with the tag of projects, um, and then you're not looking at everything in your Tana, you're just looking at your tag of projects. Um, Lots of other things that you can, and date is obviously an important one. Um, your searches, so this is where your queries come in. You can run queries on your data. You can search for data in any field or a combination of fields. You compose searches in the query builder, and we have various operators that we can use. So we can just look for a reference node, we can look for super tags, we can look for field definitions, dates, lots of different things we can use. And field operators, field operators let us combine search operators. Um, and searches are sort of a given. So everything you add into a search is going to be adding on. So I want to look at the super tag super and created today, things like that. And that's sort of a standard always there. But you could say, I want to look at this or this. And then you're not looking at everything together. You're sort of, I suppose there's a term for that probably. Or you can say, I want to look at everything except for things that have a particular value. You can do dates with less than and greater than. So I want to see everything that's due earlier than today, or I want to see everything that's coming up that's greater than today. Um, and lots of other ways of, I don't use much of those other ones, but in your system fields, you could also pull in things like your created time, your last modified time, etc. So I'm going to just show you quickly what a query can look like. So when I have already created a query here, and I'm going to just do a simple search here on the word demo, because I've used that a number of times today in this node here. And so I'm going to run that once, and it is showing me all the times where the term demo comes up. So that's just a string, that's just looking for a word. But if I said I also want to look at this in terms of the oops, created date, created time is, I could say today. And now when I run that, it's going to show me only the ones that I did today. The ones I had, those other ones that that disappeared were from a previous demo, which is in this whole workspace. The other thing I can do is now, if I did this tomorrow, then I would get nothing because I'm limiting it to only showing me things I did today. So instead of today, I could put in parent. So remember that every node is a child of whatever's above it. And here, if I do that, if I look down here, I can see created time equals searches. That doesn't make any sense because we're looking at time. But if I say grandparent, then it doesn't make any sense at all. Probably because I was supposed to use project here or something. It's something else. Anyway, uh, the idea would be that I would put this on my day page, and I would be looking for today's date. And then because I've said parent, then when I set that up to show up tomorrow, it's going to look at that day's date. So apologies for that not working properly. um, okay, views. So you can look at data in various ways. You can choose a list, a table, cards, a calendar, tabs, or a side menu. And so if I look at this as a list, I've got a few different items here. I could look at that as a table. And when I'm in, and wherever I am, this is all live. I can just add WordPress. And I can then, I could look at these as, oops, cards. and I could move them around if I had something that if I had dates, or if I had phases in a project, like not started, etc., doing, done. I could move things around just like in any other Kanban board. And I can look at things on a calendar, which at this point doesn't look like anything because I don't have anything related to dates in that. Or I could look at it as tabs across the top if I wanted to put information here about each of those. Oops, sorry. Okay, sorry. Get myself back down here. And I could even look at things in as a oops, sorry, side menu. So here I could look at Framer. That's being a problem. Why is it doing that today? All right. Anyway, that works. And I can even add another item here. Okay. Apologies, guys. Okay, we'll move on. I mentioned Tana Capture being an app that you can upload information through. Uh, so if I took a picture of, oops, just going to go into my app. You can't see this, but I'm going to just pull up my camera and I'm going to take a picture. And now I'm going to upload that. And everything you upload goes into an inbox, which I've labeled capture just so that I know that it's my capture area. And it's uploading that image. And there's the image that I just captured. And then once it's there, I could then drag it around. Oh, sorry. This I'm pulling in from my main workspace, and I'm in a different workspace, so I can't just do that. But what I can do is I could move it. I can move it to today, and then I can move it around. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. But what I am going to do is just delete that. Okay. Um, so there's lots of different things that you can do with that, and I'm going to just show you with the AI. So I had already created a voice memo, and I'm going to do two things. I'll do the voice memo first since I've started talking about that. So once I've got a voice thing, when I click on it, it recognizes that this is an audio file and it gives me the option to transcribe. So I'm going to click transcribe. It's going to go talk to OpenAI. It's going to send it the information that was in my voice memo, and it's going to transcribe it and present it back to me, and it's very accurate. Actually, it's quite good. I think they've managed to now stop it showing up in Welsh because that was happening for a while, or some odd language. It was suddenly it's like, why is this showing up like this? I think they fixed that now. I haven't seen that in a long time. But my audio is still there, and if I didn't like, I can move this. I can do all sorts of things with this. So I use this to sometimes to sort of plan things, like planning this presentation. I spend a lot of time just sort of like talking through what it was that I wanted to include in the presentation, so that because typing gets really tiresome, but I'm good at talking, as you can probably figure out. And so I will upload voice memos and then transcribe them. And then once I've got that, I can move them around and do things with them. So I often use that for my schoolwork when I'm trying to understand a topic, or when or if I'm trying to, if I have to write something for school, it's often easier for me to just start by talking it out and then working through that text and fixing it up and improving it. The other thing that I'm doing with it is I'm working on creating more AI supported content for myself, but also for client work. I do a lot of discovery calls with people, and I can take all of that information and upload it through um, a transcription system that I use, and then I can ask it questions. And in this situation, I've got a little description of Bob's plumbing, and I'm going to ask AI to create a homepage text for the business described, including an introduction and a list of services typically offered by plumbing companies. You'll notice I haven't actually listed the services that they offer here. So I'm going to just copy this so that I can use it. And then I'm going to hit Command and K, and that allows me to then look for Ask AI to, and then I'm going to paste my request in there, and it's going to go and it's going to say, here's some text, and here's some typical services that they offer. And that took moments. And it's actually pretty decent given the small amount of information that I gave them. It's like we take great pride, and all the kind of bleh kind of information that we see on too many websites, but it's description. Um, okay, so I'm going to just show you how some super tags work. So I've got some super tags set up here: project, and task, and client, and person. I'm not going to get into courses because that's just too complex and not interesting enough for us. But I've got a couple of projects here where you see this one says not started. This one just says project status. So I haven't actually set a project status for this one. I've got a launch date. I've got a client. I have a related company, related client, and I probably got a couple of different extra ones in there. And I actually have a created time of today because I thought I might want to be able to show how that worked. And then I have related tasks. So it's going to do a little search here. And probably I didn't change my search. No, it's saying nothing. So why is that? When I'm looking at my query, it's saying related prat is another cool website project, but that's not working. So let's just take that out. I'm going to say there, okay. So now here's all the tasks that I've got, but they're not, they're just a task, but they're not necessarily all for this particular project. So let's go to, um, let's do this one. Cool design project task. So I haven't selected a project to relate that to yet. So I'm going to stick that one on cool web project. Now I should be able to put my parent back in there and run that. And that's not working. Oh, I hate that. Because another cool web, that's why, because this is another cool web project. And I set it to cool design project. And maybe because let's do that and run that one. There we go. So now I've got my task related to this particular project. Now, if I wanted to, I've got a local company here. If I wanted to know who works for that local company, if I go into my client, I can configure that tag and I can say, I want to see a field that has person, and I'm going to right click and configure that field to show me options from super tag, and the super tag I want is person. So now when I think it's I don't know if it's my connection today. That's not what, yes I do. That's what I want. All right, let's go down to my examples here. So I've got a couple of persons here, and on this one, now I can choose from my people, because I said I only want to see items that are, or I want to see the items that are related to uh, my particular super tag. Okay. Uh, and I think that's probably enough, other than I can just quickly show you my garden year um, thing, which got a little crazy. Uh, but it's probably the biggest one that I've created, where I have all the plants. I have all the beds that are in my garden, all of the plants that were in each particular bed. Um, I have images that show each week and all the images that I uploaded. It's got information on things within that I can look back and say, yes, the actual first frost was on October 23rd, blah, blah, blah. So there's lots of different things in there. And I can, if anybody's interested in that, I can show you in a little bit more detail. But essentially, that's Tana, or at least that's how I use Tana. And that's an hour of talking almost, and I would love to answer any questions anybody has. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so so my first question, I'll just jump right into it. So I
Yep.
know that you're like demoing the application right now, so you're trying to show
Hmm.
like a higher level overview of
Yep.
like everything that you can do. But when you're using it, like so say you're working on your garden node there, do you
Hmm.
click like directly into the node so that you're working like in that object, right? To kind of eliminate the distraction, or do you stay in like the entire context?
It really depends on how I feel that day, or how focused I need to be. So you can work right within the area you are. You can see here when I opened up local company, I'm seeing the information on that local company, but I could also go right into that item and now see, and here I could, just put some information notes that
Yeah.
will show up that are not part of a super tag, but they're there when I look at that company. So I often will, when I have a project, I will open up the project. Say I have a meeting. So I have a meeting that's related to a project. So I see the project within it. I don't have to go and find that project. I've got the reference to that project. I can just open up that project and I can see all the information related to it there. If I want to, I could then go into that project. I could go into a task if that's what I'm working on. But it really depends on. And most of the time, I just sort of stay in the one place on my daily node. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
And then also like I really enjoyed like some of like the object oriented stuff where it's kind of like even when you're, selecting a date and you can be like, okay, grab the parent's date or the grandparent. Can you just
Mhm.
like keep going? Like can you just be like grandparent? Like or
No.
okay.
No,
Okay.
that would be lovely. There, and this is when I kind of go, I have been trying for a long time to understand this thing. There is something called components rec. So if I and it's if I let me not even see if I can do this. I probably shouldn't even try. Um,
It's okay. It was more of like
yeah,
is this possible? Is this something like people in the community are looking for? Or just like I even just like the
yeah,
fact that you can have some kind of relationship between objects just based off parents, right? That's already
yeah.
cool to have.
Yeah. So yeah, it once you get past grandparent, then connecting further up is tricky. But what this some part of semantic field does that we then use components rec as a command to say go find everything that this node is a part of. So that's how you can connect it back to something higher up in the chain. But I keep trying to wrap my head around it, and I think I get it, and then I don't use it, and I forget to use it,
Yeah.
so I can't give you a good answer on that one.
No, it's awesome. And then I see that I'll just say it because we're already talking. But Maggie dropped in a question from YouTube. So
Hmm.
Aaron Michael I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name, but Aaron, can super tags have subcategory super tags?
Can subcategory super tags.
So like, I guess, would there be like a field and then you could drop another super tag in that field?
That's kind of where the uh,
I guess you're kind of doing that there with like the company, right?
yeah. So if I go to my task, no, actually, no, it was my person. So if I go to person, I've got a relationship type, and I don't think this is quite what that person's asking. Um, but yeah, I think that's
I
not what they're
think
asking.
maybe it's more like for if you have like project status, and then instead of like typing out what it is, it's like, okay, can you have like another super tag nested in there that's like predefined project statuses that then you can kind of pick from?
Well, that's kind of what you would normally use like the options for. That's the
Gotcha.
predetermined options. Um, you could have you could sort of have a list of super tags that are your options for some reason. And then yes, so that's kind of what this, using that super tag here where I went into person and configured it. I said, use this. I used options from super
Options.
tag and I used
Cool.
the person super tag to then bring them in. So not
Gotcha.
certain if that answers that question, but
I think David also said, yeah, you can extend a super tag from another super tag, which is like what you're doing with the options, right?
yeah,
Cool.
essentially. Eric had a question about for voice memos on the Capture app, does it automatically convert it to text and link relevant keywords? No, it does not. So when you bring it in, you have to then ask it to transcribe, and then you would go through and tag to other things if you want to. But yes, so hi Christo, uh, had had said if it's a button to press. So on my day tag, I can actually start voice capture and I can actually capture voice here and stop. But I could also, if I had something in here, if I had a voice memo in here, I could actually process tasks and it would look through and see things and automatically transcribe things. So it's like I haven't set it up as a button to do that with. Um, mm, I think I was thinking I would show one more really complex. Well, I did show you some of those buttons in the in the day field here. If I go down to my agenda. So these are all buttons that are connected to commands. So if I were to click this button, it then shows up. It's a special command that just makes these visible, and I could then push that to tomorrow. And you can see now it's been changed to tomorrow. So that's using the command system to basically create that adjustment, and I have to make sure that I undo that. So that, and it's actually doing a whole bunch of things in the background there. So I have to make sure I take my roast out. Yeah, all of these different little things. So this one is just like push it to the next recurrence. Again, this is this recurring system that RJ set up, which is brilliant. I could even start a stopwatch and then stop it um, uh, and log that amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Stephen O'Grady, make the switch to Tana. Oh, Stephen, you're using Tana already? Cool, excellent. Excellent. My copy and paste skills are horrible. Okay. Yes, object-oriented programming is where this really, really shines. Super tags can inherit. Okay. So this is what I didn't show you. So I have, you can see here I have project tasks, but I also have tasks. So if I configure my project task, I can extend a task. So this is essentially a task. Now that shows up in my project task as a new field. Um, but if I create something in project task, it isn't going to show up in task because it only cascades down. Okay. Any other questions? Is Tana invite only? So at the moment, Tana is only by invite, or you can, if you sign up, you can then request an invite through their Slack channel. Okay, I think that looks like it. We're losing folks here, and I know that Jeremy had to run off somewhere else, so I should let him go. Any other questions? Oh, Maggie's now our admin. Excellent. Hello. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. It's okay. All right. Any other questions while we're here? Sure. Sure. Bye, YouTube.
Bye, YouTube.